So we've said and we've learned that a woman changes status when she gets married or when she gets betrothed. The definitive change of status is when she's married. When she's betrothed, remember we learned yesterday that a betrothal is it's a gray area. It can stop someone eating truma if she previously could. For example, it can stop the daughter of a Kohen eating truma, but it can't permit the daughter of an Israelite to eat truma. In order to definitively permit, we need a marriage. And there's a verse. It's a verse in Vayikra, in the Parsha of Emor. V'chohen ki iknei nefesh kinyan kaspo hu yochal bo. If a priest buys anyone, the purchase of his money, that person can eat of it. That means eat truma. That means eat the truma. And hu yochal bo. Let's just hang on a second. I've just lost my screen for a second. Vilid beito heim yochlu v'lachmo. And those who are born of his house can eat of his bread. So in other words, if a Kohen buys anybody, or if someone is born in his house, they can eat truma. Those are essentially the qualifications. And Rashi comments there. Born in the house, that refers to the children of his maidservants. But then he goes on to say that Eshet Kohen ochelet bitruma minamikra hazeh. A priest's wife can eat truma from this verse, because according to Rashi, she too is kinyan kaspo. She's the purchase of his money. And of course, we perform kiddushin today actually by handing over. We perform kiddushin by handing over a ring. So we're familiar with this concept, although the idea that of equating a wife to the purchase of a slave sits uncomfortably. It sits uncomfortably with our thinking. But the point is that a wife's status with regard to eating truma is going to be determined by the marriage to her husband. And what we're going to find as we learn these Mishnayot is that it is then going to be determined by her son. So if her husband dies, if her husband dies and she's childless, maybe she can go back to her father's house. And there's a verse to that effect. Shava vehi shava el beit aviha kinurecha. She goes back to her father's house just as in her youth. But if she's not childless, if she has a son, her status will be determined then by her son. So we'll see this play out in the Mishnah, but the principles are her status is determined first by her husband and then by her son. And if we can just keep these in mind, then the Mishnah will actually become quite easy and lucid to deal with. But Yisrael sheniseit lakohen. We're in the 5th Mishnah of the 9th chapter. But Yisrael sheniseit lakohen tuchal bitruma. The daughter of an Israelite married to a priest can eat truma, and we've learned that she's kinyan kaspo. She's somehow included in his possessions. She can eat truma. Mate v'lamimenu ben tuchal bitruma. If he died and she has a son by him, she can eat truma. Remember, the son of a kohen is a kohen. It goes in the family. It runs in the family. So her status is now going to be defined by her son. And her son is a kohen, so she can carry on eating truma. All is fine. Now, this woman is then going to remarry. And we'll see through the Mishnah that she goes on. She has a series of remarriages. This is a really interesting woman. Niseit la Levi tuchal b'maaser. So she marries a Levi and she can eat maaser, like the Levi. Mate v'lami menaven tuchal b'maaser. If he died and she had a son by him, she can eat maaser. And the assumption, by the way, is that she's not eating truma anymore. Her status is now defined by the family, first by her husband, the Levi, and second by her son, the Levi. It also goes in the family. And then what does she do? She marries an ordinary Israelite, Niseit the Israel. what happens then? She's now no longer has the status either of the Kohen or of the Levi. Lo tuchal, lo vi truma velo v'maser. She can't eat truma or maser. Mate, benam Yisrael tuchal. Mate, benam Yisrael tuchal b'maser. If he died, if that is the son died, she can start eating maser again, because if her son by the Israelite died, she goes back a step. Remember her previous status. Her previous status was defined by her son, the Levi. So, Meit Benam Yisrael, the Israelite son died. She can eat maser because she's defined by the previous state. The last son's died. She goes back to the previous son. Mi Levi tochal bi truma. Maybe her son by the Levi dies. She goes back to the relationship with her first son, the son who's a Kohen. She can eat truma again. So she's gone full circle. And then, mate benami Kohen, if her son by the Kohen dies, if her son by the priest dies, at that point, she can't eat either truma or maser. She just goes back to her father's house. So she's gone full circle from Bat Yisrael through to a marriage with a Kohen, to a Levi, to a Yisrael, and then through the deaths of her sons, she goes back to her father's house. That's the cycle in the 5th Mishnah. And the 6th Mishnah is now going to play this out, the same kind of cycle, but now we're going to, rather than starting Bat Yisrael, starting with an Israelite, we're going to start with a daughter of a Kohen. So we're going to start with someone who can already eat truma, because daughter of a Kohen in a father's house, she's born of his house. She can eat truma. Let's have a look. But Kohen sheniseit l'Israel lo tochal bi truma. The daughter of a priest who's married to an Israelite may not eat truma as soon as she gets married to the Israelite. In fact, we learned yesterday, we learned in the previous Mishnah that as soon as she's betrothed to the Israelite, she can't eat truma anymore. The betrothal prevents. But if he dies, mate, v'lam mimena van lo tuchal bi truma. If he died, the Israelite died, and she has a son by her husband, the Israelite, her status is still going to be defined by her son. That's the principle we learned right up front. So she still can't eat truma. She couldn't eat truma married to the Israelite, and she can't eat truma with a son who's an Israelite, even though her father is a Kohen. So let's keep going now. Nisei la Levi. She married a Levi. Tuchal b'maser. She can eat maser. Mate. V'la mimena ben. If he died and she has a son by him, tuchal b'maser. She can eat maser. Her status is now defined by her son, the Levi. Niseit la Kohen. Now she's gonna go. She's gonna go for full circle. She marries a Kohen. Niseit la Kohen. Tuchal bi truma. She marries a priest. She can eat truma. Mate v'la mimena ben tuchal bi truma. And if he died, but she had a son by him, her status is going to be defined again by this priestly son. She can eat truma. But let's see it unwind now. Mate benami Kohen. So her son by the priest dies. Lo tochal bi truma. Her son by her priestly son dies. She can't eat truma anymore. Mi Levi lo tochal b'maser. If her son by the Levi dies, she can't eat maser anymore. She goes back. She is just like goes back to the status of her first husband, who was an ordinary Israelite. But it's not the end. Mate benam Yisrael. If her son by the Israelite died, so her 3 sons have now died, and her 3 husbands. Well, she's had a really interesting life this morning. Really interesting life. Mate benam Yisrael. Her son by the Israelite died. Chozeret beveit aviha. She returns to the house of her father. And then she can, of course, eat truma there because her father's a kohen. Al zor ne'mar. And this is the verse from Vayikra, from, again, the Parsha of Emor, which we quoted earlier, Veshava el beit aviha kinureha milechem aviha tochel. She returns to her father's house as in her youth. She may eat of her father's bread. Veshava el beit aviha kinureha milechem aviha tochel.